LinkedIn. Other contact details are there as well. As Kira mentioned, I'm CEO of Clarke Analytics. We're a data analytics consulting, development and training company based in Mallow in Cork. I'm also Munster branch chair of the Analytics Institute of Ireland, which is the premier professional membership body for data analytics professionals in Ireland. So always like to start off with a thought-provoking question. Does it matter how we use data? And usually in different audiences that I talk to, I'll try to have a follow-up question, which is what is your perspective on the use of data? There's some of the things and concepts here that I'm going to be talking about. Actually, I remember presenting 10 years ago in EMC. So this whole idea of data, big data, data analytics, AI, there's a certain technology curve that needs to be sort of positioned here when you're talking about it. So 10, 15 years ago, the innovators and early adopters, the Ubers and the Amazons and all of those companies that were born in the internet were going mad into this space and using data very, very well. In the Western Seaboard and Munster, and we have a lot of life science companies are much more conservative in their approach, and they have to be because of the data integrity constraints, the FDA constraints, and all of those other constraints. In fact, I showed this to one of my clients, who's a big biopharma company, recently, and they said, "Oh, in our company we're probably 30% skeptics." So there is a challenge there in terms of how you use data effectively. Sort of, it depends a little bit of where you're coming from. And in fact, 5 or 10 years ago, when I tried to position analytics at large companies where they would have been more on the conservative side, they would have said, okay, if we do this piece of work, this data analytics project, how much is it actually going to save me? How much is it going to? And unfortunately, there weren't a lot of stories out there at that time as to exactly how effective will a data analytics project be. But in the last number of years, obviously, this seen as and this market has been developing through the innovators and early adopters, and also some of the early majority people as well. They have been sort of slowly but surely defining the market better and better. And the opportunity is now there, definitely, in the proof points are there. So this is the McKinsey study from November 2019, just before COVID, but I still think it's reasonably relevant. And they had, this was a CIO study of something in the order of 1,600 to 1,700 CIOs across the world, different market areas. And they looked at the leaders, who they saw were leaders in terms of those applying AI. And the leaders they defined as those companies that had analytics projects running in 5 or more departments within their organization. And you can sort of see with these, whether it's in the cost decrease on the left here or the average revenue increase on the right, 50% of them, and it was a small sample. It was like 5% of 1,600, which is about 80 companies. So again, not a huge number, but those that were investing in it, you could see that they were having 50% of them, at least up to 50% of them in any particular department, was getting up to a 5% increase in revenue, or a greater than 10% decrease in costs. So that 15% differential, you may not think it's an awful lot, but try adding that up across different parts of a company as well, and you get that sort of multiplier effect. So again, the evidence seems to be there, definitely, that if you do invest in data and invest in analytics, you will get the return. So that particular report from McKinsey, the 3 top critical success factors that they said from their companies was, number 1, the alignment of the business and executives to data. Number 2, investing in AI talent and training, hence data literacy and the drive looking at there, and enabling enterprise collaboration. Now, the first one here, I'm not really going to talk about. So the studies are out there. The return on investment that's capable and possible is out there. I'd say, you can bring the horse to water. So I'm not really going to talk too much about how do you align your executives. But the next 2 are sort of very much on the topic and the focus around data literacy. And it's not just about investing in AI talent and training. The enterprise collaboration is a really important part, and I'll talk about that in the next few slides. So if you put into Google the ideal data scientists, more often than not, this graphic shows up. And I remember 10 years ago presenting this to executives across Europe, Middle East, and Africa in my time in EMC. And they were sort of confounded with this. How can we train our talent to be all of these things? You try turning a sales guy into a proficient programmer, and it's not an easy task. So over the last 10 years, I think the realization that sort of comes is that there is no one ideal data scientist, but there is a collection of skills that need to be brought to the table. Now, those sales guys may not be professional programmers, but I can tell you one thing: they understand the business. They understand where the business is at, and more likely than not, they understand the value in the business. And together with the financial guys that can actually understand things like free cash flow generation opportunities and bloated supply chains, or whatever that might be, right? They're the people who sort of can help prioritize projects down to, this is the main project to go after because this is the most value to us. The technology side, again, has seen these sort of skills. I would say they're sort of focusing in to either a data engineering, who understands where data is at, and databases and data structures, and the data science, which is more using the data to answer the questions. And the business and technology, they're usually held, a lot of the major skills are held in two different parts of an organization, usually. And the key here is the process. The process is the collaboration between these two different skill sets. So classically, your people management, project management, communication, those sort of skills become heightened because 25 years ago when I was in consulting in Dublin and we were building bespoke software systems, it was all about people process technology, business process technology. But what separated success from not success sometimes was it was the wrong technology, or you didn't really get engagement from the business. But what can happen in data science, which is really why collaboration becomes even more important. What can happen in data science is that you may have the best technology, you may have the exact right business question, you may have the process down pat as to what you're going to use, but the project may still come across as not being successful and not answering the question because the data, by using the right process and the technology and getting the right question, by looking for the data and finding out that the data isn't there, you basically say you can't answer the question. Now, is that a failure or not a failure? And it's the job, I think, of the PMs in these teams to manage the expectations of the sponsor, to get them to realize that, in fact, it's not necessarily a failure. We're learning more about it. So collaboration in data science, more than any other sort of systems implementation, software implementation development focus, is fundamental in terms of getting that collaboration, getting the business people to understand what the data is saying, getting the technology people together and the process people. So in any team, how from my perspective, collaboration and understanding best learned in implementation. So in any project that you're implementing, you need to have the understanding of the business context. The three understandings I always say: you need people who understand the business context, people who understand the data and analytics and systems and architecture context, usually in two sides of any organization, one in the business, one in the data and IT teams, in those sort of folks. And then the collaboration is the people who can bring those together in a project. That understanding of the data value and how you get value out of the data, bringing those two together. Now, we have actually put some training together, and one of the, in terms of building skill and data literacy skills, one of the best trainings I think I've seen in terms of that tries to bring in that implementation as well is the Six Sigma or Lean Sigma, the make cycle. Everybody here on the Southwest Lean Forum understands this. The yellow, green, and black belts, where the yellow belt is basically you're just sort of aligning to the process. The green belt then is where you're actually doing a project yourself with data, talking to people within your organization, and then the black belt then you're up to sort of master level. So what we've developed with the ICBE, both our business excellence and advanced productivity skill nets, is a program whereby we train people on the concepts around data mining, data analytics, but we bring in this collaboration through the fact that it's learning by doing, right? So that's very, very sort of important. We have ran the course now twice this year, twice last year. We're getting very, very good feedback. And again, you can see that different companies across the region are definitely putting their people into it. I don't want to blow our trumpets too much there, but just to put that in there. So now that's just a little bit of theory. I'm going to spend the rest of my 20 minutes talking about specific use cases. And this might bring it to light a little bit, because data analytics, one of the challenges with it is that it's always a little bit opaque, a little bit abstract, oh, data analytics, what is that? Leaving certain maths, that sort of fear a little bit as well, right? So here was a retail customer we did some work with. They basically did net promoter score analysis, right? So what is a net promoter score? So you send out a survey, and it's got 20 questions, and each question somebody has to answer, how much do you like it or not, and 0 is awful and 10 is great. So if you answer a 0 to 6, you're what they call a detractor. You're not that happy. If it's 9 to 10, you're promoter, and you're 7 to 8, you're passive. And a lot of the retail people, they send out all of these surveys, and they have net promoter score to do it at a store level. So if you had 100 people in the store and you had the percentage of promoters, the 9 and 10, minus the percentage of detractors, and that gives you your overall net promoter score, right? Now, so what was the challenge at this particular retail, and why did they come to us? So they send out 20 to 30,000 surveys per week. Each survey has 30 plus questions on satisfaction. What they wanted to understand was, they only had NPS at that sort of store level. So they wanted to understand what was the effect of the individual feedback that surveys had. They had 200 or 300 stores, as I said, the 20 to 30 surveys per week. So we took all of those over like a 2-year period and started to look at them to see if we could understand the effect of the individual surveys. And they also want to know what the key performance indexes of satisfaction were. So some of the results, we built models, and we built a model to see if you could model a promoter and model a detractor. And we came up with the key performance things that basically allowed you to predict whether somebody was going to be a promoter or a detractor. And then we were able to align that over history and revenue metrics as to, okay, from a revenue perspective, we could see that, promoters, moving them to detractors, or, if you don't want to move them to detractors, but if they move to a detractor, it equated to a 7% decrease in revenue. If, on the other hand, you move them from being a detractor to a promoter, it resulted in a plus 3% revenue increase. So obviously, you will lose people faster than you'll gain them, but still, if this organization has got 100 million plus of revenue, 3% these numbers start to add up a little bit. And if you have a model where you can model promoter versus detractor and what's important to them in your key performance indexes, then you can start to put actions in place to move your detractors to your promoters, and maybe to stop some of your promoters becoming detractors. Again, sort of brings it to life a little bit more. An FMCG customer. So again, customer satisfaction. This was a drinks company. Some of their challenges, they were hearing complaints from customers of inconsistent delivery schedules. So this was interesting. We had with myself and Helen, who's on the call here, met with their head of sales. And basically they don't normally deal directly with customers, but through distributors. And they were hearing certain complaints coming back from their customers saying that, I buy more of product from this company than Johnny Two Shoes down the road, and he gets delivered to every week, and I don't get delivered to every 2 weeks. And I sell more than him, right? So this sort of level of disgruntlement was sort of there, and that was the inconsistent delivery schedule. And obviously drinks, need to be delivered sort of more quickly, and so the more regular the better. So that was sort of the position straight. Customer satisfaction obviously was a key company KPI. They had tried to investigate this situation without that much success. So what did we do? Well, and this is, there was one thing that this person said in our 2-hour meeting that I said to myself, yes, we can solve this problem. And this might come up in some of the questions a little bit later on. But what we were able to do is do a proximity analysis for customers that were within 5 kilometers distance of each other, and to equate that with ones where there was irregularities or differences in terms of the revenue that they were actually generating for the client. And we also did proximity analysis for customers within a 1 kilometer distance, and we were able to go back with a list of 100 plus at-risk customers that were suffering from inconsistent delivery schedules, where there was a significant revenue risk to the company over 100k. And again, it's that was 5x the return on investment, in terms of them actually going and doing this piece of work, right? So again, brings a little bit back to what actually the real benefit of using data to help in terms of what the business wanted to do. This is a little bit more complex, this one. There's a pharma customer. They wanted to look at upstream and downstream product yield to modeling and prediction. They wanted to use advanced analytics to complete multivariate analysis on upstream bioreactor and downstream chromatography data to see if they can model yield. Any small percentage increase in yield is obviously worth an awful lot to the pharma companies. They wanted to rank those variables, so which were important or not important. And that is done by the coefficient analysis of a model. Again, we're getting into a little bit more detail, but this was this customer came, they had all these sort of very clear requirements. They wanted to model the best fit golden batch to determine the scale of process variability. They wanted to provide recommendations for reduced variability. So like in any manufacturing process, and you guys in Lean will know this as well, variability is the variability is what you need to reduce, and is certainly the challenge for lots of these projects. So some of the results and this piece of work actually happened over a 1.5 to 2 year period. Again, we didn't have full access. I mean, they were in commissioning of the plant, so it was quite difficult as well getting access to some of this data as well. So we are able to take data, I think it was about 3,000 separate files out of their upstream bioreactors, their downstream chromatography, and cross-filtration systems as well. But we were able to do that sort of modeling where you sort of see at a high level batch level, but also at a sort of much more time series based on, the Six Sigma, the flow, using tools like TIBCO Spotfire, if people are aware of that, Sartorius Simca, very, very powerful tools as well for what you want to do. So that was the pharma customer. The last customer I will mention, med device customer. They were going for their FDA 510K market entry. Some of the challenges well, the key one was they were looking to gain medical device product market entry to the US. And the company, and in fact the FDA as well, they value sort of external statistical analysis of the clinical, non-clinical test results and documentation of same for obviously they wanted to include those in the regulatory submission. So these type of FDA 510K tests, they generally they're known as equivalency tests. And basically what the way the FDA sort of say it is that, well, you can get market entry if you can prove statistically that your product performs in the same way as something that's already been proven and is on the market. Okay, so it can be challenging enough if there's the product that's on the market is not your product, etc. So quite a large piece of work for this particular client. But where we helped is obviously to come in and look at the responses, the regulatory pre-submission responses, their test protocols, their statistical methodology, sample sizes, all of that sort of stuff, and then the sort of very specific technical statistical analysis of understanding the difference between the measurements from the other product and the measurements from the product that this particular client want to put in place. And you would have seen, it's actually PMD Solutions, I think Miles Murray, I saw him come onto the line here as well. So great job by them in getting their product approved. And it was approved, and there was I think there was a 200 to 300 page reports for them, but very, very specific things that the FDA were looking for. And again, a clear other best use of data and analytics. So just to finish up, key takeaways. If you're looking for key takeaways from this presentation around building data literacy, obviously aligning the business and executives to data, because that gets you a focus on data to enable data-driven business decisioning, and a focus in the organization to enable things like collaboration across the organization. So that's very important. Obviously, investing in AI talent and training. And training doesn't have to be, a 2-year master's, right? So some of the stuff that the SkillNet courses that we put in place, our equivalent to the Yellow Belt is a 3 days effort over 3 weeks. So it's very, very, very sort of manageable. And we use market leading tools as well for exercises. And again, the enabling of enterprise collaboration, because there is a larger risk of, you did everything, you got all the right skills, you got all the right technologies, it was the right business question, we didn't get answers to the data, so data analytics is a crap, and it doesn't work and all that sort of stuff. But the fact is, you're learning, you're building your maturity, and that's a very, very important thing. So that's the enterprise collaboration is a fundamental requirement here, right? So I will stop. Claire, I think I'm pretty much on time.
Thanks, Dave. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you. So we'll take any questions if anyone has any questions. No, so I have 2 questions here, Dave. So the first one is, do you have any way of knowing whether an analytics project will be successful from the start?
Oh, that's a big question, Kira. Okay, I'll give you a couple of examples. I think one is, if the business question is, the more specific the business question is on a specific, and sometimes, unfortunately, it's a pain point, right? So of the business. So for example, that drinks manufacturer there, they had a very specific pain point, customer complaints. They needed to understand the differentials in delivery schedules. It was very, very specific. And the fact it was so specific that really, that I was fairly sure that was going to be fairly good. I had another example where, again, this was a large organization where they had a real pain point in terms of their stocking strategy, and their stocking position had increased by over 300%. So again, and it needs to be managed, they need to understand why, etc. So sometimes the business question, make it very, very specific, needs is aligned to a pain point, but that's where you get your salespeople who understand the business and your financial people, and they can help sort of zero in on it's not there's never the best question, but there could be better questions than others. Another example, for example, again, I'll go back to that drinks company one, and there was one thing he said in our first meeting with him that I knew, yes, we could do this project. And basically I asked him, did they have location details for all of their customers? And he said, oh yes, we've just completed a project where we basically were able to apply a grid reference to every single one of our customers. And I went, right, okay, we could do this. So some of the, again, this sort of things that you can't absolutely predict success, but you can predict whether or not something is going to be, at a 70% rather than a 50-50 and one of them is the business question, and the other, which you probably need a bit of experience as to how you're going to answer it, as to, you learn quickly whether or not the data is actually going to be there. And that could be through, say, a workshop or something that's done at the start to figure out what exactly needs to be done in the project. So, okay, that's 2 of That's some
Thanks,
answers to that.
Dave. Thanks. There's other questions coming in there now. Thanks, Dan O'Mahony. So, Dave, where does data analytics fit in digital transformation projects then?
Yeah, so to me, digital transformation, it's the why do you need to do digital transformation? It's like digital transformation is the engine, and data analytics is the oil that will make you move the engine as to where you want it to go. Why would you just transform everything digitally if you weren't going to use that digital data and information for business advantage? So while data needs to, and digitalization and digitization, digital transformation needs to happen. You're transforming your business processes to be more data driven. Why you do that, you can apply then data analytics on top of a digitized business process or digitized organization to transform that business more to be more efficient, and again to get some of those gains in terms of more revenue or less cost. Great question, Dan.
Okay, so we'll take one more question there, Dave. So, from a small business's perspective with limited resources, what are your thoughts with respect to integrating AI without breaking the bank?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the what we're talking about here are people who are slightly larger organizations that have bigger sets of data that may need more tooling to actually look at that data and mine that data for what you're looking for. If you don't have, I mean, the first thing for smaller businesses is to understand what data you have. So what data do you have in your